All right. So I have now hit record. Am I right? Am I good? Is it recording? Okay. What's up, Sydney? I am
What's
super
up, dude?
excited. I am super excited. It's my very first podcast, and I'm going to be super
Woo
real.
woo.
I'm pumped about it, and I couldn't be more excited to have someone like you on here because we've become friends just in the last, several months. And,
Mm.
I look at you and look up to you and the fact that you are the queen of all things social media, video, YouTube, and I want to be like you. So I'm starting my own podcast. So super excited to have you on. And I wanted to ask you, how are you handling? Is your Starbucks closed where you're at? Because where I'm at, my Starbucks are closed, and I can't get my coffee. So I didn't know how you were handling that.
Uh, if let's put it this way, I'm not going through cold brew withdrawals yet.
Okay.
I packed up the house. Like when we got the news that zombie apocalypse was happening, the first thing I did was fill the outside garage, because it's still, below 50 or whatever, with jugs of cold brew. So I'm pretty much stocked for the next 3 or 4 months. I'm good to go. Yeah. I heard you were drinking some coffee, by the way. How many cups you had now?
Man, I'm jacked up on about six. So my dog wakes me up at like 5:30 every morning and wants to go out, and so I've been up for a while. So I'm jacked up right now, and so again, being my first podcast, I don't know where to even begin on this, but I want listeners to know who I am because some people are like, who the heck is this Heath guy? So
Well, can I jump in for a sec?
yeah, if you want to, let's do it.
All right. I'm having a cold brew moment here because, like, obviously, the typical situation with podcasts is like you got this interview host and he's got an interviewer on, and so you're the host, I'm the person who's being interviewed, but I want to flip the script for a sec. I'm going to take on the host role.
All
So
right, all
watch
right,
out, buckle your seatbelts, everybody take a chill pill,
yeah.
right? Hit me with, like, this is your first podcast and I'm honored to be on it. Honestly, like I it's a big thing to be on somebody's first podcast. So I very much appreciate that. And I hope that I don't let the audience down here. But hit me with, like, why you started this thing. 'Cause I'll never forget our conversation. I was sitting outside the UPS store and in my car, and it was like 20 degrees outside. And you're like, dude, I'm thinking about, first of all, you always say dude, which I love. I was like, this
Oh.
guy says dude 20 times a day. We're going to be friends. You're like, dude, I'm thinking about starting a podcast. And I was like, do it. Yes, do it. And then we probably had 3 or 4 more conversations. And then all of a sudden I got an email, I'm starting a podcast. And I was like, let's go. Like, what was going through your head, that like 3 or 4 weeks ago, and what's it been like? Because a lot of people say they're going to do it and then they don't do it. Like,
Right.
what went through your head?
Well, I have to say, I live in Arkansas, and so for people that are listening, I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, and here in Arkansas, I have a lot of agents that ask a lot of questions of what are other agents doing, or how do you do this, or how do you do that, or what's going on in the world of technology, or what's the best thing to put on YouTube, or the best thing to put out there on social media. And I just started researching myself on some of that and started listening to podcasts like yours. And I'll put a plug out there for insurance guys, Jason Cass, Ryan Hanley, some of the guys I listen to. And I'm like, there needs to be a voice like that in the South. There needs to be a voice like that, from Arkansas, the people that are a little backwoods, we're a little behind the times on certain things. And something needs to be said, and something needs to be put out there. And I just thought I'd be the person to do that. And so that's kind of where I wanted to go with that, and just have a voice and a podcast to help people learn what's going on out there, I guess, if that answers your
Yeah,
question.
it does. Well, and I just, you are one of the most humble people that I've ever met. Um, to be completely honest, and I think it's one of your strengths, because you're just so, you have this ability to get people to open up and be vulnerable, and you love on them so deeply and so authentically that I think when you said, like, hey, I'm going to start a podcast, I was like, there's no better person who could be that voice. Like, if there's somebody
Uh,
who's going to be in that space and do it, like, it's going to be you, right?
And I appreciate
But
you
I just,
saying that because that's my thing. I love people. I mean, like, I absolutely love people. And in fact, you know, I went to college and got a degree in Christian ministries. I don't know if you knew that about me. And
I
I don't
didn't.
know. I don't know if you could hear that or not, but my computer's going crazy. So you might have to edit that, Ryan. But so I went into school to be a minister, and I spent my first 4 or 5 years out of college doing that and loving on people. And I was a youth pastor, and I worked with their families. And I found myself in a space where people just expected me to do good things, or they expected me to talk about certain things because I was a minister. And for me, it took away some of the effect that I wanted of, being this authentic person. So, excuse me, that's probably not good, Ryan. Do I need to start that over? But,
Ryan, do not edit any of this.
right. So, part of it was, um, like I said, it wasn't exactly what I wanted, the effect I wanted. So my father, I'm a second generation insurance guy. So my father was in the life insurance business, had been for 40 years. And I thought maybe I could start selling some insurance and help people that way. And I could still do ministry by selling insurance and helping people out. And so I started working with Dad, and quickly, I became one of his top salesmen and won a trip or two. And I was like, man, this is cool. I enjoy being an agent. And I got out of full-time ministry and started full-time in the insurance business back in, gosh, '04, '03. So I've been at it quite a while now, almost 17 years. And as I started helping people, I got this jolt of energy from that. And knowing that if something were to happen to them, because not only do we sell life insurance, we did some other products that I knew that most of the time when people are in a claim situation, the first person they call is not their mama or their doctor. They call their insurance agent a lot of times. And I thought, wow, that's super cool. I can be a part of that. And then, I butted heads with Dad a little bit along the way, as you may have in the Roe agency. And I was just like, I don't want to work for Dad. I don't want to follow in Dad's footsteps. So I jumped quickly from life insurance to the P&C side and, worked as a marketing rep. And I fell in love even more with the industry from that perspective of working with agents and helping them to help their clients, helping them build their business. And it became just this joy for me of helping people build their brand and build their business. I know that may sound weird, but that was just something that was super exciting, exhilarating for me. Does that make sense?
Dude, 100%. I did not know a lot about those things. So that is like, that's amazing that's been your journey. It's been so focused on people. I think you just keyed in on something that also makes you really special, and I think will make you a very impactful voice in the insurance podcast field, which is you've seen the industry from so many different perspectives, right? So you have this care for people. You're one of the most humble dudes. You get people to just open up in a way that not many people have the ability to, and you're coming at it, like a lot of people, they've been an insurance agent, or they've been on the carrier side, or they've been in the association world, and you have this ability to see it from all three perspectives. Like you're literally working in insurance and married to insurance. Like there's no way you're getting out of this industry, bro. Like
Right. And that's something that I feel like every day I wake up in an identity crisis, and I wake up, I don't know, because I have the mindset of an agent, but I work for a carrier, a large carrier at that. And then on the flip side of that, part of my story is back in 2008, so 3 or 4 years into my career, I was asked to be on the board of directors for the PIA locally here. And I was the only marketing rep and a board full of agents, and for me to get to see that perspective and to work with agents in a room every, quarter, we'd have these meetings and I'd get to get involved in that. And again, just got me more jacked up. And I realized, and you were on the association side with Agency Nation, with Trusted Choice and all that, as well as I do, the more you get involved in those things, the more you get out of it. And the more that, you're going to grow in your career. And so I dove headfirst into it and got to work behind the scenes with agency principals from you know, 25 million premium all the way down to, you know, just starting up, you know, and I got a whole different perspective. So yeah, you're right. I was an agent first and I became a carrier rep. Then I'm working in the association world and planning events and doing golf tournaments and getting involved in that. And I figured out, again, as you just called me humble, and I'm going to say this about myself, I figured out my superpower is networking and loving on people and getting involved in that. And the more I got involved in the PA, the more I got behind the scenes and pulled that curtain back and got to be involved in that, the more I saw my career flourish. And I began to get more job offers and get to help more people and got to do this and that and learn more. It was just exhilarating.
Dude, the insurance industry better watch out. Like, y'all don't even know what's about to hit you.
I appreciate you saying that. But I don't know. We'll see. This is my first one. If nobody listens, then it'll be my last one. But so that was, you know, as I'm involved in the agency or the association world, you know, I quickly became vice president. And again, no other company rep in our state has done that. I don't know in other states. Okay, when you were working over at that association level, were you on the local side or more on the national side?
More on the national side.
Okay. So I didn't know if you'd ever heard of other company reps being on board of directors for the Big I or any association at that level. But for me, it was unprecedented where I was. And so I took advantage of that and took that for granted.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I mean, so you're saying like at the state association level.
Yes, ma'am.
Typically there's agents on the board, but yeah, it is unprecedented to have a carrier rep on the board. But I'm guessing they were down with that because you had that agent experience. And I mean, you clearly are like incredibly vocal and about how much you care about agents. Like, right. I couldn't imagine anybody questioning that.
And that was the thing, that it didn't. And I expected to get pushback from other carrier reps and other people. But for me, like I said, I just dove like as hard as I could head first into it. And I wanted to give back so much. And I'm still young. I'm 28 years old at this point and still learning about what I'm doing and where my career trajectory is going to be. If it's going to be carrier rep, I'm going to go back to the agency side. And excuse me, I wanted that so bad to be in the insurance world, but I didn't know what space I wanted. Like I said, identity crisis. I didn't know where I wanted to be. And so getting involved in the association level, I could do all the above. And the more I networked and the more I got to know more people, it became just one of those things that people, and my wife tells me to this day, she hates going on dates with me in public because everywhere we go, I run into somebody I know. And she gets mad if we go to the grocery store because I'm going to stop and talk to 35 people before we get out of the store. And she's like, dude, I just wanted to go get milk and get out of here. Or I just wanted to go have a date. And I can't even do that because 15 people are going to stop by the table and say hi. And so it's kind of become a running joke that I'm the mayor of insurance around here because I know so many people. And again, that makes me excited because I feel like I can help more people. I can get involved and get to know more people. And my wife says it's nosy, but I look at it as I just love people and I want to know more about people and I want to help more people. And so, yeah, that is a perspective that I have from all three sides of that.
Dude, that's powerful. Because I mean, like I said, I think typically, you know, you're coming from one perspective, which is a superpower in and of itself, right? But the fact that you've got all three, it's like, I mean, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear who you've got. I don't want to I'm assuming you've got like a list of like 100 people. Yeah, as Mr. Networker, like that's by the way, the one thing, this is the one thing podcasters struggle with, by the way, is like getting the list of people to interview. And you probably, before your first episode, you probably had a list of 1,000 people.
I've got a strong list. I don't know if they'll say yes or not, but I wanted to start with Syd Roe. Hey, that brings me another question. I'm gonna flip it back on you for a minute. Is it Syd or is it Sydney? What do you prefer?
If we're friends, it's Syd.
Okay, well, good. I assumed that, so we're friends then, because I've always called you Syd.
We are.
I've never known any better. It's either Syd or dude. So
exactly. Well, dude is like we're like bros at that point. Like
right on.
Yeah.
So I guess fast forwarding from that a little bit, as I'm telling my story a little, I got to work for a large commercial carrier in 2009 or 10. I had just won Marketing Rep of the Year for the state association, which obviously thrilled me. And that kind of, as I said earlier, that opened up doors for me. And a large carrier, commercial carrier in Arkansas, hired me, and I worked there for nearly a decade and learned so much about agencies, about the inner workings of how that works, about commercial insurance in general. And they were also a personal lines carrier, but my first love was commercial insurance. And
Mm.
I I had some agencies that would say, Heath, can you help present some accounts for me? Just because I was so vocal and so outgoing, and people would just tell me, you could probably sell ketchup to a woman in white gloves, or ice to an Eskimo, or whatever the saying may be. Dumb and Dumber reference, by the way. And I no, was it Tommy Boy? I can't remember. Anyway, old school movie reference. And so I fell in love with that aspect of it too, knowing that not only am I going to go and just shove reports in front of somebody and say, here's your numbers and I need more business from you. It became a thing where I was becoming more of an advisor for people, and to say, you know, if you're looking at this, I would do this, or I would do that, or join this association, or get involved in this line of work, or chamber of commerce, or whatever it may be. And people looked at that as, I was providing more value than just being a marketing rep. And I hate that term, marketing rep. For those out there that are marketing reps, I'm sorry, but that just it bugs me, because I don't like that stigmatism that we just, or that whatever you want to call it, that we just walk in and shove reports in front of people and that's all
Yeah.
we're good for. There's so much more that I want to provide as a marketing rep for people. Does that make sense?
Dude, 100%. But not everybody thinks like that either, right? So I think what you're doing is not just, I mean, in a way you're going above and beyond, but more importantly, you're redefining that role. Like, what does it mean to be a marketing rep, right? I mean, it used to be, well, just tell the story of the carrier to the agencies in your given region or locale, right? And you're saying, well, wait a second, how about we tell the agent's story too, and we help the agents build out their story and empower the agent's story, not just tell the carrier's story.
Exactly. And I
Like,
wish that I could have some sort of meeting or a lunch and learn with marketing reps to say, let's not do it the old school way. Let's not just sit down in front of people and tell, okay, here's what we want. Here's what we can do for you. Instead of going and say, hey, how can we help you to grow as an agency? How can we help you, to do better, whether it's processes or different products and different ideas that you may have, or, hey, do you know what's going on with Neon? Little plug for Neon there. Do you know what's going on with this or that product? I think that to me is more valuable to an agent than just shoving your brochures in front of them and saying, hey, we want to write this month, or that this month. And so as I'm doing that as a carrier rep, I thought to myself, I could do this myself. And so I jumped out of the carrier world and got back into the agency world and started working for a small agency here in Little Rock. And I tell you, a year into it, and you'll know about this, but I was sent to a program called Pace Setters. You're familiar with Pace Setters?
State Auto?
Yes. And that's, again,
Yeah. Yeah.
another plug for State Auto, which is my competitor. Sorry, Encompass. But that revolutionized and changed my whole sales techniques, my thought processes, and everything, because it's such a great program. And it taught me, like, just day-to-day operations and what to do and how to cold call and how to get back into these things and what technologies to use, and taught me how to use Salesforce and got me into this. But during the process of that, and I did really well, and I was in the top 10, and I got to go on a cruise and do all that. And so by agency measures, I was successful. I didn't fail at it. But while I'm doing that, and I'm in a room for 2 weeks with 40 plus agents, I'm finding myself gravitating more towards trying to help them sell than helping myself sell. And they're calling me during this process saying, hey, I saw that you had 47 yeses this week. How did you do it? What's your process? How did you go through that? What was your cold call technique? And they had contests. And if anybody's listening that's been through pace setters, you'll know what I'm talking about. But every week they would have little contests of, this week we're going to cold call HVAC contractors. And this week we're going to do plumbers, or this week's this. And it would be a thing where they would track your results. And every week people would say, hey, how did you do that? And I found myself helping them more. So funny story is 2 years later, as soon as I got off that cruise, I jumped right out of the agency world and back into the carrier world, because I just found myself gravitating more towards helping agents. And people thought I was crazy because I was doing pretty well and I was growing a good book and a good reputation. And it just one of those things I had to do it, because I had to follow what I love, which is helping agents and helping people. And so again,
Which,
go ahead.
By the way, being in the top 10% of the Pace Centers program, that's no small chops. Like that's actually a really rigorous program, because it's not just about learning, it's about executing. And if you don't, from what I understand, and correct me where I'm wrong here, but I think if you don't execute, you drop off at a certain point, right? So you actually can get booted from the program, which I've never heard before. Normally it's like, here, go to this class, learn some stuff, take a test. There it's, yeah, learn some stuff. Okay, now go do it. Oh, if you're not doing it right, you're out of the program. Like that's huge.
Exactly. About, I don't know, 30% of my class ended up booted or dropped out or quit. And I just, first of all, I ain't no quitter. So there's no way I was getting out. And I got lucky and caught some good accounts and wrote some 6-figure accounts, and it really helped me to grow in that. But again, to me, it became more about helping other producers, and I found myself gravitating more towards that. Even my boss at the time, if he's listening, he'll agree, as he's sitting in the car or whatever, he would say, dude, you're doing stuff that I should be doing, or you're finding yourself helping more agents than you are writing business. And you could be 10 times larger than you are now if you would just focus on growing your book instead of other people's. But again, that wasn't me. And I figured out in this 18-year journey, I guess I've been on 17-year journey, my love and my purpose is more with agents and helping agents to grow. And I just had to swallow my pride of owning my own thing or having my own book. I just had to swallow that and say, you know what? Maybe my purpose is to help others to grow their books. And as odd as that may sound, I'm back to happy again. I'm back to loving life again. And I'm back to what I do best, in my opinion. And so, yeah, anyhow, that's kind of where I'm at on that right now. And I guess that brings you up to date of where I'm at.
It's powerful stuff, dude. I think we need more people like you in the industry, to be totally honest, because it is, it's also no small feat to be an agency owner in 2020. There's so much going on. I mean, now look, we're in a world pandemic.
Oh my gosh.
And I think a lot of agencies are struggling with, whereas I had the ability to like rely on that physical collaboration in my office. I could rely on the physical community, going to networking meetings and meeting people that way. I could rely on the physical, communication with my clients, meeting, shaking their hand, getting to build that relationship. Like, how do you build relationships with people when you can't see them? How do you keep your business running if you can't see your team every day, right? It's a really tough spot, right? I mean, and I know things will go back to normal, cross my fingers here, knock on wood, like eventually, right? But like and the tough part is, as an owner, like you're having to deal with all that plus all the typical like leadership, ownership, management stuff that goes on, and it's really tough. It's really tough.
Right. And I was gonna actually flip that on you to say, because I know you travel a lot, and I can't ever get a hold of you sometimes because you're always in meetings or you're always on the road. And in fact, I remember I texted you not too long ago. I got my butt hurt, and I was like, dude, you never respond to my text anymore. And I know it's just because you're busy, but how are you handling that yourself when you and Seth were just rolling, Seth Zaremba, who I'm referring to, and seeing people and talking about, this whole neon things you've got going and having carrier meetings or having agency meetings. Now you're at a complete halt and you're at home now, quarantined. How are you handling that?
Yeah. So having 3 kids and 2 dogs in a 1,700 square foot house is a little rough sometimes. I mean, we are getting very close. I think now that schools have started sending us some, structures, some stuff for the kids to do, it's been a little better. But man, I don't know if you felt this, but like it was insane in our house for the first week. Just kids were like, no school, we could do whatever we want. And, we're trying to like do our jobs. And was I the only one?
You're right. No, and I feel like I would totally fail at Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader right now? Because,
Right.
dude, that is some tough math and science. And I'm like, what in the world? But yeah, and I think you're right. You weren't the first one. That first week, it was tough having to work from home and do homeschool, Dad. It was definitely difficult. My wife's still going to her office, praise the Lord. Otherwise, there would be another body in here that would have to do this. And so, it was tough, but we've settled into that. But it's still, I know for me personally, I miss seeing my agents. I miss seeing people. I miss being out and about. And sometimes, as bad as this may sound, I'm admitting this on purpose on a podcast, but I go to the grocery store just to see people. And I know I'm supposed to stay 6 feet and stay in the house, but I'm just praying we run out of milk so I can go to the grocery store and say hi to somebody. And it's something that I'm struggling with. So again, I flip that back to you. How are you handling that? And what are you doing? And maybe give me some insights on what you think some agencies should be doing. I'm flipping it back on you now. How you like that?
Wow. All right. That's a big question, man. We have really buckled down on process actually at the Atomic. So I think whereas, before we're 3 people trying to start a company. There's a lot of work to be done. And I think we're all being stretched into areas that aren't our strengths. And we need even more communication at a time like this, right? I think whereas before you could sort of like rely on the water cooler conversation, when you don't have that, you've got to be like overly communicative. So I think we're stepping back and saying, okay, we need to schedule more, weekly morning meeting. We have, and that's just sort of like, okay, what's coming up in the day and what roadblocks are coming up against us. And then in the afternoon, 3 times a week, we've got more business process meetings. So we're working on documenting the onboarding process for a pilot agency, the onboarding process for a pilot carrier, the migration process, what does it look like? What are the steps? What is the experience that somebody's going to go through? And how can we handhold and not let people feel like confused or what's happening next or what already happened.
Let me pause you for a second. Can I jump in for just a second? Because you said something that my wife and I call as insurance buzzwords, but you brought up the word processes now a couple of times. And right now during this pandemic, that's been thrown around a little bit and people are having to adjust to a new way of life and processes. Could you, maybe some of the insurance agencies that are struggling out there, small or large, with processes, maybe dive into that word a little bit more and give them some tips or some ideas or some strategies on developing new processes and what that means to you?
Yeah, I mean, so a process is just a set of actions that your team is taking in collaboration with the customer or the carrier to complete an effort. And every agency has a set number of efforts that they're repeating every single day: billing, claims, renewals, quoting, requoting. We're all doing the same thing. We all do it a little differently, right? You might have a slightly different process or set of actions than somebody else, but we're all basically doing that. We're all trying to accomplish those efforts for the customer. The business sees that as a process. The customer sees that as an experience. So it's the same thing from 2 different perspectives. And, the process is, it's really important to hone in those set of actions for your team so that the team member knows what to expect. There's clarity around, hey, this is what it means to get the job done. And also for the team to understand where the agency is at, right? So is one person in the agency working overtime because they've got so many efforts that they're trying to do at once, and hey, this person over here is a little bit less burdened? Is there a way we can shift some responsibility to help the agency continue to perform for its customers, right? So that's why it's really helpful to clarify that process. On the customer side, it's really helpful because you've got to understand the experience that somebody's going through. And if you don't know the process, you don't know the experience. So I would say just, my dad used to, when I was working for him, he used to write out his processes in like a white notebook and then type them up and put them in a 3-ring binder. And every time we would get a new employee, he'd set that process book down, like, here's what we do. This is what we're expecting of you, right? And that was great back in 1990. Now in 2020, we have the ability to digitize those workflows. And so I would urge an agency to consider, as you're thinking through the operational side of your business, especially in this the 3-ring binder is great if you can go down the office and say, hey, how's it going? And you can see the person and work with them and sit down next to them, right? Right now we're in quarantine. We don't have the ability to do that. You can call them up, but there's a lot of agencies are blind to what's going on. And so if you can think about building a tech stack or, that digitizes those processes, I think you're going to find a lot more clarity for your team member, which gives them confidence because they know what to expect, more clarity as an owner to make sure you're shifting resources and still running the agency smoothly, and more clarity for your customer because they know what's going on. I don't know, that might have been
no, that was
on my soapbox. But.
No, that was awesome. That was really awesome. And I love that, again, we have so many more things in common than I ever expected. And, knowing that you started off in your father's agency, and I love that you referenced that, because there's still things to this day. My father is 76 years old. There's still to this day that I refer back to, even his old school methods. So the 3-ring binder thing, that's super cool to know that he was doing these kind of things before it was a buzzword or a processes or a digitizing, whatever. He was doing that before all that. And
he's
so
the OG.
That's right. And I'm sure there's still to this day things that you recall back from working for him, correct?
Oh my gosh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
And that's one of those things that I think is super awesome. But again, you mentioned, and again, if you're listening to this podcast 2 years from now, the pandemic's over, I hope. But while we're in this now, let's be relevant right now. What are some things that you feel like forward facing that agents can do? Because you, like I said earlier in the podcast, you're the queen of all of these things, social media wise and YouTube. What are some things you could tell an agent right now? Because here again, my first podcast, I'm jumping out and doing it. What are some people they can say, okay, I can do this today. I can jump out there and do this. Can you give some ideas on that? Because you are the queen of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say a couple things to think about are, think about your web presence, right? So your website is the first, that's your foundation. That's like it's equivalent to your building, your office, right? It's just a digital building that sits out on the internet. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Does it talk about your why? Does it, does it clarify for the consumer who's just coming on board what next steps are? Are those call to actions really clear? Does it have information that educates the consumer around what you do? So I would think about the website first, and then think about how you're going out into this online ecosystem and creating attention for yourself, right? So if we're comparing your website to your office, all those efforts that you take to go to networking meetings, to call people, to walk doors, to cold call, right? What does that look like online? So I'd say think about social media, right? Think about posting articles, answering questions that people have right now. A lot of restaurants are wondering if, they can deliver, and what does that mean? So, right. So, hired and non-owned coverage. What is hired and non-owned? How do I get it? What does it cost? What does it look like? Cyber insurance. You have a lot of employees working from home right now. There's more risk involved, right? So can you answer some questions for people around that? Writing articles is huge. And then post them on social media. Do a video, share it on social media, and that'll be picked up by your friend group and hopefully shared by them, and you'll reach people you haven't met, in the same way that you go to a networking meeting and you're like, hey, my name's so-and-so, and you meet one person, and then, hey, have you met Tim down, in the corner over there? Like, he's awesome. You got to go, right? It's the same thing. It's just online versus offline. So I'd say be really active. Think about this as a time to, if you haven't been active online before, start taking those steps, start doing the work, start thinking about, how I can reach people online, and really use social media and all those different outlets to boost your presence and what you're doing.
Now, would you say, for a small agency owner, would you say using Facebook is your best option right now and boosting on Facebook, or would you say Twitter or Instagram or LinkedIn, or would you say all of the platforms? And would you post the same thing on each one, or would you tailor different messages for different things? Let's get real elementary. Again, we're in backwoods Arkansas. Let's talk here.
Yeah, well, every platform has a little bit of a different soul. So LinkedIn was created with a mission of helping business professionals connect. So, I think you're going to see more professional conversations on that platform. People are in that mode when they're on that platform. So, how can you reach out to people when they're in that mode, right? How can you create content that affects them when they're thinking that way? I think answering business questions is huge for that. Facebook is a little bit more, it's more, it's more social, right? It's more like, hey, I want a behind the scenes look at what does it feel like to be operating a business from home, right? Like, what is there a picture like of you in Santa Christmas pants on the bottom and a suit on top, like, right? I mean,
dude, by the way, that was classic. The tuxedo top and the sleepy pants bottoms. Dude, I loved that.
But it's like everybody's doing that, right? So there's no shame in, sharing it. Twitter's like 140 characters. What can you say in 140 characters? It's, catches somebody's attention. You can share links and videos on Twitter. And Instagram is very visual, right? So again, kind of like Facebook, it's like more that visual experience of like what it's like to be operating a business online. But I'd say, every platform has a different soul, but you probably have a different presence on every platform. So if you prefer one or the other, just go hard on that, right? Go hard if you feel like you've posted more on LinkedIn in the last 3 months, just dive deeper into that, explore that more, share more, talk more, comment more, engage more.
Right. And would you suggest to agents that they spend money to boost posts on Facebook or things like that? Or would you say just, anyways, talk to that?
Yeah. I mean, so it's just so weird that we bring this up. So I haven't really done a lot of Facebook advertising for Be Atomic in the last 7 months, just because we don't have a product yet. So I don't want to spend money if I know I'm not selling anything, because I'm not going to make money off of that advertising. Now, I will create awareness, but I was pretty confident I could lean into my reputation and the network I'd already created initially in those first couple months and save some money. So I did do that. Now, funny enough, yesterday I did create an ad on Facebook, and I think I put $50 behind it, and it's got almost 300 engagements, right? And I've made 3 appointments for Be Atomic conversations off of that.
Okay, there you go.
So that said, I think I was averaging, 10 engagements and really not getting a lot of heat off of Facebook before advertising. And then since I did boost it, so I think that just goes to show like Facebook is a pay to play platform. So if you want to, if you're looking to create more serious engagement, you're going to have to be more serious about, you know, what you're spending. You don't,
Sure.
things don't come for free.
And I
So
recognize, and I know other agents probably do too, but if not, maybe you can help me testify to this. But I've noticed in my own posts on Facebook when I was an agent and even now, I can post a credible article that I shared or an article that I read that was really industry related. It was great and get 10 or 12 likes. I could post a picture of my kid or my dog or my wife or something personal and it'll break Facebook for me. And sometimes that's frustrating for people to understand because they think, oh, I shared an article, I should get sales off of that. And so do you have some advice on that, of creating original content? And can you testify to that, or am I wrong?
yeah, no, dude, you're not wrong. Virality is a slippery slope, right? I always think of this image that I saw when I was in like elementary school of a Greek god, and he was like, "This is so random. Just stick with me for like 3 seconds."
Dude, I love random. Let's do it, dude. Let's do it.
So I think his name was Narcissus or something like that, and it's this image of this dude, like this Greek god dude. So you know, he's barely clothed, and he's standing over this pool of water, and he's staring at himself, and eventually like the story is he falls into the pool because he's just staring at himself and he drowns, right? And it's just this idea of like virality is a slippery slope because it's almost like us seeing our own popularity, right? All those likes and engagements, and that's great. And I think it's great to see views and it's great to see likes and comments, but those are all vanity metrics. At the end of the day, what you want to see is booked calls and closed sales. You want policies on the books. So if you get 50 views but you get 3 bookings versus 200 views of your dog and no bookings, which one was actually more profitable? Right? So it's not about the view. People will come to our YouTube channel and they'll be like, oh, you only got like 100 views on that video. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't know what else happened, right? Those 100 people that were watching were our target market. So yeah, I mean, and here's the other piece of it, right? It's quantity. So sorry, I'll stop talking here in a sec. It's quantity, right? No, okay. It's quantity. So it's like, people also think I want to post an article on my website and then I want to be in the top spot of Google. Give me one example of walking into a networking meeting for the very first time. You don't know anybody and everybody freaking loves you. It doesn't happen.
Every single time. Are you kidding me? I'm just kidding. No, you're right. You still have to do, yeah, I'm with you.
Right. It's you're building reputation. If you've never posted an article before, dude, talk to me in like 6 months when you've been posting articles every single day, right? I mean, that's the level that you've got to get to, because it's the same thing as showing up at those networking meetings and showing up at those doorsteps, and it's building that reputation, and you're just doing it online.
So you would say, because I have the same issue, and there's times that I'll post something, if I don't get enough likes or enough views, I'll delete it. But what you're saying is, on those YouTube videos that maybe you only got 16 views, you're saying consistency and persistency, and stay in front of people regardless of the amount of engagement until you do build that audience, correct?
I want people to come to our YouTube channel and see 30 videos that each have 250 views versus one video that has 10 million views. Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, it totally does. Because I found a lot of agents and a lot of companies that I've worked with, business owners, they want to chase that viral video and they want to get that huge engagement on one post. And it's like, I'm with you. I'd rather have a ton of videos with 25 views that actually were impactful instead of that one of my dog chasing its tail 30 times or whatever it may have been.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's almost like, it's the same thing as saying like, I don't want 1 5-star Google rating. I'd rather have 64 stars than 1 5-star, right? Like because what it shows is consistency and reputation and authority and expertise versus virality. if you're chasing virality, you're chasing the wrong thing. You got to do the work, right? So I guess that's my mindset. And that's what I would urge people is this is the time to get involved online. If you haven't before, it doesn't mean you're going to close sales tomorrow, but it does mean you're doing the right thing and you're building a foundation that in 3-4 months, when this pandemic does take a turn and it does start to, you see that downward slope, you're going to come out of this way more prepared than the guy who just continues denying that he needs to be online.
So
right?
don't what you're saying is don't sit there and wait for business as usual. Adjust to the new normal and get involved on social, right? Jump in.
I love you.
Oh, I love you. So we may have to just say stop right now on the podcast because I just kind of love you from Syd Roe. So yeah, I'm so glad you were on the podcast today. God, edit that, Ryan. I'm going to start over. So Syd, I'm so glad you were on the podcast today because there's so many things that agents can learn from you. And I could sit here and rap with you for another hour or two because there's so much that agents from across the country could learn from you. And I appreciate your expertise. I appreciate you taking the time to help my audience get to know me and get to know you better.
Dude, I appreciate it. Honored to be here. And for all those listening, you guys better keep tuning in because this podcast about to blow up.
What? I sure hope so. Hey, dude, enjoy the rest of your day and we'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good.